Good morning, School of Light. It's around 9:40 here in New Mexico. We're in chapter 18. And before we get into this, first of all, you can get a free Bible study from us if you like. Just let me know. Second thing is this is about Saul's jealousy toward David. Now, there's a lot of jealousy in life. If you're young, you'll come to find that out. If you're older, then you probably already know. And it could be folks who are on your team, even in your family, on your business, in your neighborhood, in your family. I said that already. So let's hop into that. Keep that in mind. God, open up our hearts and our minds in Jesus, in the nombre de Yeshua. Amen. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as he loved himself. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. Whatever Saul sent him to do, David did so successfully that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the people and Saul's officers as well. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out of all the towns in Israel to meet King Saul. With singing and dancing, with joyful songs, and with tambourines and lutes, they danced, they sang. Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Saul was very angry. This refrain galled him. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands? What more can he get? The kingdom? But the kingdom. And from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David. The next day, an evil spirit from God came forcefully upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the harp as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, "I'll pin David to the wall." But David eluded him twice. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David but had left Saul. So he sent David away from him and gave him command over 1,000 men, and David led the troops in their campaigns. In everything David did, he had great success because the Lord was with David. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. But all of Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord." For Saul said to himself, "I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that." But David said to Saul, Who am I, and what is my family or my father's clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So when the time came for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Meholah. Now Saul's daughter Micah was in love with David, and when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. "I will give her to him," he thought, "so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." So Saul said to David, "Now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law." Then Saul ordered his attendants, "Speak to David privately and say, 'Look, the king is pleased with you, and his attendants all like you. Now become his son-in-law.'" They repeated these words to David, but David said, "Do you think it is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I am only a poor man and little known." When Saul's servant told him what David had told Saul, Saul replied, "Say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies." Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So, before the allotted time elapsed, David and his men went out and killed 200 Philistines. He brought their foreskins and presented the full number to the king, so he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Micah in marriage. When Saul realized that the Lord was with David and that his daughter Micah loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him, and he remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistine commanders continued to go to battle, and as often as they did, David met them with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. All right, wow. Remember, Saul was afraid to fight Goliath and his army. David, a young man, wasn't. He fought them. Then he starts getting jealous of David, throws a spear at him, wanting to stick him to a wall. Saul's son, Jonathan, loves him, makes a covenant to help him. And then he gives one daughter away, but then Michal, he believes that she will be a snare to David. Then he has David killed or presents him with the challenge of obtaining 100 foreskins from some men, fighters, soldiers, and then he not only gets 100, he kills 200, gets their foreskins, because Saul was wanting him to die. Don't think everybody in your circle is for you. And remember this, all these jealousies, all these sabotages never comes from God. You can always talk to God. You can always be his best friend. You could always just be with him, because he doesn't do that. He's not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should change his mind. Does he speak and not act? Does he promise and not fulfill? No, of course he fulfills. God always fulfills. God is not a man. God can be trusted. God will never be jealous. God will never set up a stumbling block in front of you. Never try to trap you to take a fall. Meditate on that for a little bit. God bless you all. Bye.